Hello, everybody. I'm Joey,
And I'm Lori.
and we are doing our marriage and family podcast, Christ Centered. So today I'm going to talk about pursuing my wife. And before we do that, I want to remind you that this is our fourth one now? Fourth one. We're trying to build our platform, trying to get a following so we can help you. We can help you in your marriage and your family. Maybe here in a few weeks we may talk more about family specific things, more like blended family, because we are both from divorce backgrounds. Now, I know that might be kind of a shock, but we're going to talk about that too. So here in a couple weeks, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, we'll talk about that now. But what we want you to do is we want you to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button, give us a thumbs up on the like button, and leave a comment. And hopefully it's going to be a good comment or a question. And if you have a negative comment, that's fine too. We'll take it and we'll answer. And if there's something that we said you didn't like, we'll try to correct. But we hope that this is going to be beneficial to you. So please like us and subscribe and get the word out. Tell somebody else you know if you like this program. Okay, so one of my biggest takeaways from the marriage conference that we went to back in May 2024 was learning how to pursue my wife and what that means. I know some of your men are going, what are you talking about, pursuing my wife? That sounds strange. Well, that sounded strange for me too. But we were at a point earlier this year where our marriage was kind of in a rut. It wasn't terrible, but we didn't really know that we were in a rut until we went to the marriage conference. And then we started learning things, and we thought, oh, okay, we got some things to work on. So we need a spark. And this marriage conference gave us a spark. And one of the things that we started working on was how to communicate better. And that was the number one thing, communicate well, besides being Christ centered, which we've always been Christ centered and godly marriage, godly principles, the Bible, prayer. It's always been a focus, but now it's even more. It's even more of a focus. And we learn how to communicate. Uh, and there were some things that we had to work on. We identified some problems, and maybe we'll talk about that in the upcoming future. But we had to work on that together. But for today's show, I'm going to be doing most of the talking, and she's going to talk every once in a while. And I may have to ask her to, elaborate if she wants to. But this is going to be me talking about how I changed to better myself for her and how she benefited from that. And, um, you know, we learned a couple of shows ago about loving your wife like Christ loved the church and sacrificing for your wife and um, loving your wife like you love your own self. And I would say more. One of the things that we learned was that Christ, not only gave himself for us, but he was a servant. And I got a Bible verse for this episode. Mark chapter 10, verse 45 says, For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. And he gave his life a ransom for many. Men, it is our duty to serve our wives, whether we like it or not. Some men may not realize that because we've been taught differently by the world. We've been taught differently by churches and Christians. And maybe you might be in one of those fundamental churches to where this is very foreign. Back in May 2024, Lori and I went to a weekend marriage conference, and one of the things that struck me out the most was my role in pursuing my wife. And men, if you ever wonder why your wife doesn't respond to you like you want her to, maybe it's not her. Maybe we are the problem. Maybe you're the problem. Maybe there's something that you need to do. The number one thing I learned at this Christian marriage conference is as a husband, we need to lead her by setting a Christ-like example. And you remember they said what was the one thing that women are attracted to the most? Christian women are attracted to the most in their husband. You know what that was?
Leading in the home, leading Christ-like in the home.
That's right. Yeah, they wanted somebody that was a spiritual man, somebody that was Christ-centered, somebody that was going to lead them spiritually. And I'm like, wow. You think you want somebody that's good looking or got a lot of money or that wasn't number one. Number one for a Christian woman was somebody going to lead them spiritually. So you got to get that right first. You got to get that right first. And let Jesus Christ guide you as you lead your wife and as you love her. Love her like Jesus would love her. like Jesus would want you to love her. And I know my wife appreciates when I set a Christ-like example for her. One of the ways we as husbands can set Christ-like example is to serve our wife. And yes, according to the Bible, the wife should be submissive to her husband because the husband is the head. But that doesn't mean the husband should be authoritative and demand, her serve him hand and foot 24/7. Now she might want to do that. And sometimes my wife does. But I don't try to demand it. And I try to help her. Sometimes I tell her to stop and let me do that. Sometimes. So in this show, I'm going to list the ways I have learned to pursue my wife by performing acts of service for her. And then I'm going to talk about just some other ways, some nice things that I can do, out of ordinary things that will really get my wife feeling loved, impress her a little bit, and it helps. It helps in a relationship, and just the day-to-day things you can do that help in the long run. One of the easiest ways I have been pursuing my wife is sending her messages and notes throughout the week. I like to send her a text message, when she's at school, or she works as a school teacher, and I send her messages asking her how she's doing and hope she's having a good day and I love her and I'm thinking about her. And she'll respond
Post-it
back.
notes in my lunchbox.
Post-it notes in her lunchbox.
Did that a couple times last week.
I try to. In this way, she feels special because she gets a special note or a special text. And she's better about this than me because she knows how to find all the great social media things. And she'll send social media texts to me, and I try to send some to her. Or, put something on Facebook or Instagram talking about how great your wife is. And she sees that, and she knows everybody else sees that. So she feels love knowing that I am telling the world how great my wife is. And when I do these things, it lets her know that I'm thinking about her and she is valued by me, and she will return the favor, and she'll do the same thing for me. She'll leave me a nice note or messages throughout the day. And she's better at the social media thing than I am. As I started to my quest in pursuing my wife, I asked her what I could do more to make her feel good. And she said, just help with things around the house. And I was like, all right, that sounds easy. For most men, that's probably not the strong suit for most men because there's some men, they don't know how to do laundry, don't know how to do dishes. Okay. And cooking is not their strong suit. Get the grill or whatever. They just don't think I need to clean the house. Some men just don't. They're not hardwired like that. We men are not hardwired to do housework, but we can't demand the wives to do, especially when a wife works as much or maybe more than the husband does, like my wife does. I can't expect her to do everything around the house. There are some, even in the Christian ministry world, who would say men do not have to do these things. That's the wife's job. And the women should do all the housework, take care of the kids, and as some well-known preacher that I'm not going to mention says, the woman should make the sandwich. That's not the right attitude to me. That's not biblical. Biblically speaking, we want to love our wives like Jesus loved the church. We should love her by pursuing her, being intentional about letting her know that we value her, and we're going to demonstrate that by our words and our actions. Pursuing my wife starts by serving her first. So, not tooting my own horn. Let's see. Lori, how am I doing at pursuing you?
You're doing pretty good. Yeah. Well, you do really good by, obviously, we both work, but, you manage our finances and you manage the budget, you fix things around the house, and do things. If it was just me by myself, I would have to hire somebody to do it. And,
I fixed the couch yesterday.
Fixed the couch yesterday, yeah. And, tries to fix things on his own first before he calls in somebody, whether it's the heat. We've had to have the heat fixed. We have cars or something. We have an older car for our teenage son, and something's always going wrong with it. So we're trying to figure out what's wrong with it and fixing the plumbing, or he's pretty good at all that stuff. So he does a good job of fixing those things. And gets groceries on Saturday. You probably don't know many husbands that actually do that. We hook it up and go get groceries, and sometimes we'll go together, like we did last weekend. But most of the time, he just gets up and goes to do it by himself, and that does take a lot off me. Because honestly, most Saturdays I'm doing schoolwork, so he goes gets groceries, so it takes
I can
one thing
attest
off
to
me.
that. That is real. And your school teacher's job never ends. So why is it important that I do these things for you?
Well, like I said before, I don't know how to fix the maintaining the house thing, and I don't know how to do those things. So that helps because we don't have to hire somebody to do it. Keeps me from having stress about it because I know that if you don't know how to do it, you're going to try to figure it out before we call in somebody else to do it. You getting the groceries, like I said, I'm usually doing schoolwork, so that takes one more thing off my plate to do. Managing the budget, something I don't have to worry about. Like I can pay bills. I was a single mom for a while, so I don't know how to pay bills. Um, it's just everything else that I struggle because it's such an abstract thing to manage. This much for groceries and this much for gas, and he's got a whole spreadsheet thing that he does. When he would get deployed, he'd leave me all the spreadsheets with
budget night.
Yeah, here's this month's spreadsheet. I'm like, just tell me how much money I got left to get groceries. That's all. That's all that matters. So he's really good at that, and just those things just help take a load off me, so I'm not having to stress over those things. So that just having less stress, less because my job is stressful enough by itself, just being a teacher. So just him handling those things, especially the things he doesn't have to do, like going to get groceries. A lot of wives do that, but that's just.
But men, we like to eat. I
Yeah.
like to cook, so that's fun.
Yeah, he does like to cook. So that's another thing. We both kind of, I would say we're about 50-50 on the cooking. If I get home first, sometimes I'll start it, and sometimes he'll say, "Don't cook. Let me do it when I get home. I know you don't have to rush home and cook." So sometimes I'll be like, "Okay, I'll just come home and sit and let him do it." So
I'm happy to do it.
yeah. So that's good on that, right?
Okay. All right. How about get back to your list?
He teaches the Bible and take us to church and set a God example for our family, which, we talked about how Christian women want that in a husband to do that. And I know, like he said before, both have been divorced, and so I know it's like not have that and wish I had it. And so I'm so thankful for that now. He likes to, he'll help out with laundry, and he's always done some things like cook, laundry, so it's not like he's never helped me around the house. He's just more intentional about it now.
A lot of
Laundry
times,
and cleaning and
a lot of
dishes.
times, I don't mean to interrupt you, but a lot of times I'll go on these long Air Force trips. Sometimes I'm working night shift, and I'm sleeping during the day. Well, during the Air Force, I was in the Air Force for 26 years, so the military takes you on adventures, and sometimes that leaves the wife and the kids home by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So she had to deal with that a lot.
Yeah.
She did a great job.
And even when he was home, like you said, he would work crazy shifts. So sometimes he would, go to work while we were still at school, and so we get home and he was gone, and then by the time he came back home, we'd be in bed or whatever. So we didn't see each other much, and sometimes he would cook the dinner and then go to work, and we get home, everything was ready to go, and we would, just have to warm it up or whatever. So he's always, I think, tried to do things, but now you're more intentional about it, and now I think you have a different mindset about how much it helps me for you to do those things. And before, I think you just kind of did them, maybe just because you wanted to or because you were trying to help out. But now I think you have a better understanding of how much it helps me to do those things. And then some things you don't have to do. My knees are terrible, and so I'll come home and like my knees hurting, and so he'll be like, "Put your feet up here," and put my feet up on his legs. And we have this lotion we bought when we went to the Smoky Mountains. It's a homemade lotion. It's got like peppermint stuff in it, and he'll rub that lotion on my knees, and so that just really helps. Helps the achiness, I guess, to go away. And so he'll do things like that too. So it's more than just doing housework and things like that. But
and while I'm doing it, I'm listening to you.
Yeah, he listens to me being about school. You're like, yeah.
I might say that again. But what if I wasn't doing those things? How would that make your mind frame?
I would be like, I know there's been many weekends where you be like, you're stressed out, or I can tell you're upset, or I can tell something's bothering you. I'm like, well, I got all this, I got grades to do. This bathroom needs to be cleaned, and this needs to be done, and this needs. And he's like, okay, so what do you want me to do? So I'm like, well, you could clean the bathroom or whatever. And so those things just help me not feel so overwhelmed. And you're helping me do those
So
things
what
too.
if, let me phrase this a different way. What if I was one of those husbands and I had hobbies and I just didn't contribute much, and I just don't feel like I need to contribute much because it's just not I do what the husband thinks he needs to do, and I just don't contribute much more. How would that make you feel?
Like you didn't care, like I was by myself, um, like you didn't value me, that you were more worried about yourself than
So,
me.
so men, take note that sometimes we need to sacrifice. I think I said that on my first show. We need to sacrifice our time, sacrifice our desires for ourselves, and see what our wife needs. How can we help her? How can we keep her not being stressed? Because I'm telling you, if you can make her feel love, and it ain't about, I better make sure she's happy. Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's more about making her happy and making her feel loved, making her feel valued,
Appreciated.
and making her feel like that she's got somebody that's going to help her, and she's not going to be left on her own to do everything.
Yeah, and the only time you want to give me attention is when you want attention.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that too.
Yeah, and that helps. Yeah.
And here's the deal, man. We don't do these things out of obligation. Well, I better do it. Like you said, I want some special attention. I better do the X, Y, and Z. Because your wife's going to see through that. And
Mm-hmm.
don't do them because you do them without being told. Just do it. Don't let your wife. Well, I thought you was going to do the dishes today. Guess I got to do them again. I think you done messed up. We as husbands do not need to be our wife's extra child. I'm not gonna, I'm gonna leave it right there. I'm not gonna explain. I'm not gonna elaborate. We don't need to be our wife's extra child. Our wives do not need to stress out because we do not help her, and we make her life more burdensome. And she feels that she's just stressed out because she got to take care of kids and the husband.
Mm-hmm.
Husbands, learn how to serve your wives. Impress your wives by doing some of the things she just does by default. And when your wife can go, wow, he's really trying to do good, she's going to notice that. If she's a good wife, which I know most Christian wives want to be good wives, sometimes it's hard to be a good wife when your husband don't want to help. And don't just do this every once in a while. Don't just do it. I did it a couple of days, so I'm good for another month. No. Make this an ongoing thing. Let your wife know by your actions that you're going to help her on a regular basis. I think too many well-intentioned men have the wrong concept here of what it means for a wife to be submissive to her husband or just serve him out of obligation, especially fundamental Christian types. And even some Christians in non-fundamental churches too. Well, I guess there's two different sides of that. You got what I'm trying to say is that some men just expect the Bible says the wife's got to be submissive, so I expect her to clean the house, do the dishes, cook dinner, and take care of me, Friday night whenever I'm, feel I need taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
But then there are some husbands some wives and husbands that we're gonna just live together and do our own thing and whatever. I think there's a trend in modern Christianity in some churches that husbands and wives are detached and they're okay with that. That's not good either. So we don't want to go that direction either. Um, our wives are not our servants. They are they're our spouses. They're our helpmate. They're the second part of that two piece that makes that two into one. It's your husband and your wife together that form that one. They work together. They don't work independent of each other. Unlike what one famous preacher says, and I've said it before, it's not the wife's job to make the sandwich. And I've heard some Christian preachers say that if your wife doesn't clean the house right, instruct her to do it again. That's wrong. Maybe you clean the house, and if your wife doesn't like it, maybe she can tell you to do it again, and you should just do it again. Um, and on the contrary, she can correct me if I'm wrong, but I make my wife sandwiches.
Mm-hmm.
I try to do a lot more for my wife just because I want to. I don't expect. I'm not going to say, okay, well, I'm going to write this down today at 9:20 or 6:25. I did something for my wife, so when she gets home, she better do something for me. I don't do that. I have learned that a husband should serve his wife, just as Jesus was saying here in Mark chapter 10, verse 45, that the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and he gave his life as a ransom. This brings me to my last point of pursuing your wife. Be intentional about it. Do it because you want to. And don't do it like at a scheduled time. Just do it out of the blue. Just say, I'm going to do it because I want to. Go out of your way to do things to make your wife feel good. And we listened to the couple called Ryan and Selena Frederick. They're the ones from the Fierce Marriage book and Fierce Marriage podcast. And they taught us something I think was in their podcast. And I think they talk about in their book called simmering. And this is more deals with the physical intimacy thing, but that's a real thing. When I first heard it, I was like, "Oh, I like this. That's good. That's good." Um, and I'm going to be real about when it comes to physical intimacy, and they say men has a higher sex drive than women, and with men, it's easy for a man to get turned on, but a woman, it's not automatic. Not always. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. But and as a husband, you can't expect her to just perform on demand. That's where the simmering thing comes from. As a husband, you can't be disconnected from your wife 6 days a week and then all of a sudden say, okay, let's get together. And your wife going, oh my goodness. Now you want something. It's like the boiling waters. You can't get a pot of water, set it down on the stove, 5 seconds later, expect it to be boiling. Everybody knows that anybody has ever boiled water. I guess you can mess that up too. I guess people don't know how to do that. I guess I've heard. But it takes a while for the water to boil. Now the simmering thing is like take the water and just let it simmer for a while. That way it's almost to the point where it's going to boil. And all you got to do to get that water to boil, you just got to turn it up just a little bit. So it's kind of like husbands. If you want some physical interaction with your wife, you got to get her to simmer. You got to make her like that simmering pot of water. Am I saying that right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You got anything to add about that before I go on?
Well, I think it needs to be. It's more than just okay. Today I want some intimacy, so today I'm going to give her attention. Everything he does them consistently. So it's not like, oh, he's doing the dishes today, so he's probably wanting something. It's he does them consistently enough where I'm not suspicious when he does something. You're thinking, okay, well, he's doing that because he wants something, and like we've talked about in our previous videos, we'll sit on the couch and talk every night, or I don't. He holds my hand. We're walking somewhere. We're sitting in the car. He puts his hand on my leg. So when he does those things, it's not me. I don't automatically go to, oh, okay, he's doing this because he's wanting something tonight, because he does them all the time. So he does those things enough to where I know that he appreciates me. He loves me for me and is not just trying to get something. If that makes sense.
That's good. You said it better than I could. But there was a time when I didn't do those things, not because I didn't want to. I just didn't realize it. I didn't know. And she didn't have a way of communicating that to me. And we kind of got disconnected for a while. Mm-hmm. And the marriage conference helped. So I'm telling you, these podcasts we've been doing, these books we've been doing, especially Ryan and Selena Frederick. And if this ever gets back out to them, great. Everybody needs to get plugged in with Ryan and Selena Frederick, Fierce Marriage. You need to get connected to them too. There are many different analogies and different sayings about, women and how they get in the mood for sex, intimacy and whatever. The woman's sex drive is normally lower than the man, which sometimes it's not, it all depends. Sometimes it could be higher than the men. It depends on the situation and the circumstances. And I know that's true. I've experienced that. One of the analogies is that you hear in these big fancy sex books is sex begins in the kitchen, which sometimes it does, but doesn't always. Or that if you want to have intimacy tonight, it needs to start in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
It starts first thing in the morning. Well, I say it's more than that. And it's much more than there's more to it than that. I've seen sometimes where it can be more automatic than others, but for the most part, you as a husband have to help your wife be ready for intimacy. And sometimes intimacy is just sitting together and sharing a coffee together or sitting out in the back porch swing,
Mm-hmm.
sitting on the couch. It could be anything. Um, and one of the things that we've done that's really, really helped us is we both go to bed together at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it is the busiest day we ever had, we just want to go to bed and go straight to sleep. We go to bed together at the same time. That really makes physical intimacy a lot easier. Um, it's more than the physical. It's a mental and emotional thing with your wife. And you as a husband need to understand that. You gotta tap into that mental and emotional part. You have to get your wife mentally and emotionally ready for physical intimacy. Pursue her. One of the first things I started doing to pursue my wife was just talk to her more and listen to her when she's listening to me. And sometimes we men will listen and kind of zone out and not really hear everything our wife's saying. Sometimes our wife will say something and we just take it the wrong way. And if my wife says something and if I didn't catch it, I'll say it again. What do you mean by that? All right, try repeat what she says. That way you're like, well, how did it make you feel? Or, what do you think about that? I try to do that more often. When our wife knows that you value the conversation with her, it will help her mentally and emotionally. For the past 5 months, we've tried to sit down on the couch and talk. Sometimes we will read a couple's devotion. Sometimes, mostly every night. We always pray every night. Um, and I would say 4 out of 7 nights we usually read the Bible. Sometimes we're better than others. Sometimes it's just such a crazy night that we'll just pray and talk to each other real quick because our days are so busy. And if you're like us, you probably are, your days are busy too. Uh, but just being, sometimes we have had some nights recently. We just sat there and we just sit next to each other and just sit there. We're just sitting next to each other. We don't talk. It's value the time to just sit next to each other
Mm-hmm.
instead of sitting 50 feet apart in different rooms.
Yep.
We are sitting next to each other.
Well, and honestly, as a teacher, and I'm sure teaching is not the only job where this happens, but you feel like you get overstimulated during the day because you have kids asking you questions all day and talking and asking questions and talking and you're talking and you're having to listen to them. It's just, all day long. And sometimes it's okay to just sit and not talk because it's helpful, you know, to just sit and just be in the quiet for a little bit. It's just that helps with the not feeling overstimulated because you're talking all day, you're dealing with kids all day, and I deal with sixth graders, so I don't have little ones, touching me, like I'm teaching kindergarten or something, but you're thinking and making 1,000 decisions during the day, and you get home and you're just mentally exhausted, and so you know we talk, but then sometimes we just sit in the quiet because it's just we just but we're still sitting together, and we're just kind of in the quiet together,
And the
that's
last
okay.
thing she needs after what she just told you, she experiences sometimes. Last thing she needs for me to come and overstimulate her more. And I need to do my best to give her some peace, give her some calm, and just give her, um, that feeling that she knows that I am on her side and I hear her and I understand what she's going through and I just want to comfort her. Sometimes that's all she needs. And that goes a mile. It goes 1,000 miles to our relationship. And it helps me too. It gives me peace knowing I am trying to do my best to love my wife and she sees that and she acknowledges that. Another thing I do to pursue my wife is be close to her physically, especially in public. Show her physical touch. We did that Gary Chapman love language test, and her strong points were physical touch and quality time. So I try to focus on it, and other things too. But those two are the ones that I try to focus on mostly. Uh, Try to grab her hand when we're in public. I want people to see me holding her hand. And a lot of people have commented and said, "You two look just great together." You know, how do you guys do it? And I was like, we just want to. We know that if
Sometimes you have to be intentional about it.
you gotta be
You just have
intentional.
to think about it.
We want to because we love each other and we just feel like that's the best thing to do. Whether we're on a date night or whether we're at church or, we might be at the grocery store, we try to hold hands. And I value her. Uh, I always want to try to hug her and kiss her throughout the day. Uh, we always try to start off each morning with a hug and a kiss. And then when we come home from work, we do that at night. And just every once in a while, just grab a hold of her and just say, I love you or you're the best. That's one of my go-to lines. You're the best.
Yeah.
There are other things you can do as a husband to pursue your wife. I like to get my wife cards, when I'm out making a dollar store trip, I'm like, let me stop, see what kind of cards they have. They rotate their cards, and every once in a while I'll find a good card at the grocery store, dollar store. Like, yep, that's what she needs. She needs that card today. Or I'll write her a note or a poem or just some little post-it note, or I'll write her a poem, or sometimes, I haven't done this in a while, but I need to do it again. Get like a Bible verse and just write the Bible verse and what's the Bible verse, how it reminds me of her. Of course, I will occasionally get flowers or candy or gifts or get her a coffee or something like that from time to time. Those things are still good to do. They're not her favorite thing, but there's nothing wrong with doing that. Even though if you take that love language list and that might be number 5 on the list, still do those things. When you as a husband start doing these things for your wife, when you start pursuing her, she will appreciate it. And it will make it easier for other areas in your life. That It will make it easier to communicate. It will make it easier to solve problems. Sometimes, look, forget the physical enemy thing. Sometimes when we have a problem and we're trying to sort out an issue or maybe a conflict, if I have been trying to pursue her and show love and affection, it makes it easier to solve that conflict. But when I'm disconnected from her, the conflict goes on for days. And you may say, you know what, it does for my marriage too. Maybe. When you start doing these things, when you start pursuing your wife, she will appreciate it. And she'll start pursuing you. Maybe next week she can tell you some of the things she does for me that helps me. How she has learned how to be a better wife. Maybe that's what we'll do next week. And it will revolutionize your marriage. If a husband learns how to be a husband and a wife learns how to be a wife, Christ-centered way, it will revolutionize your marriage. Do you have anything to add?
I will say, whether you're the husband or the wife, don't wait for the other person to do these things. Like for us, after we went to that marriage conference, he was the one that initiated the change, which, I saw the change in him, so then I responded. So if you're the wife, you can initiate the change by, doing things for your husband and showing your husband appreciation and respect, and then you'll change him. It may not happen overnight, depending on your situation. But and I can talk more about that next week. But I think don't wait, don't go, yeah, husband, watch this video, and you start doing this stuff. You can be the one, the wife can be the one to initiate the change. So don't wait for the other person to start doing something.
Sometimes I'll listen to a podcast or video and I'll say, hey, listen to this and see if that's something we can do. And she'll say, yeah, I like that. We can do that. We'll bounce ideas off each other. Okay, well, good talk. I like that. This was a good one. All right, well, thank you for listening. And hey, we appreciate that thumbs up, subscribe, comment. Tell us if you like it, if you didn't, if you got questions. If you got questions, please ask questions and we can try to help you. That's what we're doing this for. We're doing this to help you. And we want you to have a Christ-centered marriage. But in order to have a Christ-centered marriage, you have to have Jesus Christ the center of your life. So if you don't know Jesus Christ, we hope you come to that knowledge today, where you repent of your sins and let Jesus Christ be your Lord and Savior, and He will forgive you those sins. And then you can learn what it means to live for Jesus Christ. And if you're married, you can have that Christ-centered marriage. So thank you for watching, and see you next week.